Look, I get it. TV deals, the NFL plays an afternoon and night game, but it really, really stings and feels almost like a disservice to the college football world that this is an 11 o'clock kickoff on Saturday, the biggest game of the day, a home playoff game between an ACC foe and an SEC foe. It's in Kyle Field, one of the biggest stadiums in college football. Nick Saban literally accused us of piping in crowd noise earlier today, and his reasoning was it's just simply too loud, which is like kind of the biggest compliment you can get is when someone accuses you of cheating. Um, it means a lot. So thank you, Nick Saban. But yeah, my Texas A&M Aggies host Miami, 11 a.m. on Saturday. Texas A&M is a 3-point favorite. The number has dropped. A lot of the consensus is they kind of feel like Miami can go in and win this game, which is very fair. They definitely could. But I'm curious to hear y'all's thoughts on this game, and then I can give my spiel about how I'm feeling as an Aggie fan going into this game.
JP, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I think the biggest part is going to be Carson Beck and the offensive line versus A&M's defense, Mike Elko. I think that tells the entire story right there, because if they can move the ball to any success with Malachi Toney, with their running back group and Mark Fletcher, but it'll be now Cassius Howell flips. He'll flip sides a lot, but when he's matched up with Francis, which I learned how to pronounce it, I'm probably butchering it, but Francis Mauga, which I just butchered. I know I did. Their left tackle, he's gonna be a top 10 pick in the NFL draft. That's NFL versus NFL right there. And when that is occurring, I think advantage towards Miami. So it'll be really critical. You can't flip the tackles, but imagine if you could. Imagine if you could just you see Cassius on one side and you go ahead and flip the tackles. They just flip Cassius, and then we have a little cat and mouse.
Eventually, they'd have to be like, all right, someone's got to you got to pick a side. You got to stay on your side. But yeah, that's fair.
It makes me think of switch hitting and with Durangelo Sanga, the switch pitcher versus a switch hitter. Who decides first? You got to make someone decide there. But Carson Beck. Go ahead.
There's a movie that happens in I don't remember the name of the movie, but it's this. There's this Little League team from Mexico, and it's like their improbable journey to winning the Little League World Series. And they face a kid from Texas who's a switch hitter, but their guy's a switch pitcher. So they stand there for 30 seconds. The hitter will swap. Well, then the pitcher swaps, and then so finally the umpire tells the hitter you got to pick a side. We got to get a move on. That's just what it reminds me of.
I know.
Continue.
And yeah, I know in the MLB the rule is the pitcher has to declare, and then the hitter gets to declare what he wants after that. So that if you're wondering what would occur there, that is the case. But that has nothing to do with the football game being played this Saturday at 11.
A big aside. I think
it's Carson Beck, and how does his offensive line play against this Texas A&M front? Are they able to move the ball down the field? Are they able to hit deep vertical passes? Are they able to keep Carson Beck clean, keep him from avoiding pressure and avoiding turnovers? I heard a lot of people this week, the key to the game is quarterback turnovers. Who has more ends up losing more than likely. And so I'm really curious to see how that works. It feels like you've been saying, or like you said at the beginning, Jack, a lot of the consensus is now kind of moving towards Miami has some belief here. Miami has a chance here. And I point blank, I don't believe it. I'm not going to believe it till I see it.
Sure.
I've been told in all of my 23 years that, Miami is a national powerhouse. They should be one of the biggest brands in football. They should dominate the sport. They have the talent. They get the players. And then for the better part of a decade now, we've been told, this is now Miami football with the turnover chain. Remember the turnover chain with the U? And then they show up in the ACC championship and they play Clemson and we beat the doors off of them. We think of last year, they have a Heisman Trophy potential winner in Cam Ward, number 1 overall pick. They can't even make the playoff because they can't beat Syracuse. And this Miami team is no different. They lost to SMU this year in a brutal way. They lost to Louisville this year in a brutal way. And now we want to believe, now that they've made the playoff, they actually can go out and do this. I have no doubt that they have the talent and the players there to do it, but they don't have the head coaching, and they don't have the moxie, and they have not shown it yet. And look, I'll go ahead and spoil my pick right now. I have zero belief that Miami can do this by their own, like, by their own doing. I think only Texas A&M can hand them this game,
Sure.
and they have. I mean, by all means, go ahead and prove me wrong, but I have been proven correct for my entire life that Miami is not something of note, and it's not something to fear, like it was in the
Yeah.
90s. This is, I don't think Hurricane football is back, and I don't get why people are leaning so much towards them when we have been proven, even this year, that they aren't.
And I want to add something to that real quick and kind of specify because there's been a lot of talk. Everyone loves to immediately compare the quarterbacks and be like, oh, most important position on the field, who's better suited there. Marcel Reed is by no means a great quarterback. I think he's a good college quarterback. But I've seen a lot of people saying they like Miami in this game because they want to rely on Carson Beck's experience and they trust him to go deliver in a big game more than Marcel Reed. And once again, I'm not going to sit here and say that I have the utmost confidence in Marcel Reed to go play a clean game and a perfect game. But Carson Beck got chased out of Georgia for being bad in big games and making big mistakes in big games. The loss to Louisville, he threw 4 picks. He threw a big pick at the end of the SMU game that lost in the game. So just from that one standpoint, like I don't get that being the reason that I have trust in Miami to go win this game. Carson Beck is talented enough that he could, if he has an A game, he could 100% tear us apart with the weapons he has, and he could throw for 300 plus yards and 4 touchdowns and be the reason they win the game. But I don't think he's shown us any sort of consistency to have like confidence in him to go do that. Like he's completely a wait and see player in that regard. Similar to Marcel Reed, like I'm gonna have to wait and see if he can handle what Miami throws at him and if he can read their coverage as well. And so that's just just an I said quick addition, not really a quick addition, but just kind of to add on to your point there.
Yeah, and I 100% agree with what JP was saying about the narrative around quarterback play is going to define this a lot. Just looking at like some of the losses that Miami has had in the Louisville loss, Beck had 4 interceptions. In the SMU loss, he had 2. Marcel Reed in their loss to Texas has 2 interceptions. It's going to be super. It's not Josh Allen level, narrative where if they have 2 interceptions that they lose, but it's the kind of thing where. And then you look at Marcel Reed in his last 5 games, he's had 6 interceptions. I mean, he's had 2 interceptions in 3 of his last 5 games against LSU, South Carolina, and Texas. And that LSU and that Texas defense are both very good. South Carolina's defense is not on that level. But that's also just a really weird game. So I think we might be able to throw that one out. But then you look at this
Sure.
Miami defense, and it's just
I wouldn't throw it out personally.
I'm not saying throwing out, but it's
He
really
looked
hard
dog
to
water.
it's hard
The
to
whole
take
offense
anything
did.
from that game because you have the first half where he throws the 2 picks and the second half where he's just elite. So
It's more of a trend with Marcel Reed. He's gonna put the ball in harm's way a couple times a game at least.
yeah.
And it's just, does the defense catch it or not? Do they capitalize on that play? And once again, circle back around, talk about Carson Beck throwing picks in big games. To his benefit and to his relief, I guess A&M is terrible at. They have 3 interceptions on the season. Defensive backs and like we've just dropped picks. We don't have ball hawks in our secondary, if you want to call them that. Like we got guys that they'll break up a pass, but they're not going to go make a snag and make a great play to intercept the football. I wish we would. I hope we do. But like we just don't have those kind of players really in the secondary. So we're likely to, when he puts the ball in harm's way, just bat it down. Good play, but I'd prefer the pick.
Yeah. Um and then a question that I have for y'all, depending on, people can call the ACC fraudulent or whatever you would like. Miami's a good football team. They have a veteran quarterback. Your thoughts on Carson Beck? They've got weapons in Tony, and then they've got a really good defense. Is this A&M's hardest? So I'm going to say the Notre Dame game early in the season, very challenging, but Notre Dame and A&M are both different teams now than I would say they were in week 3. Just, injuries throughout the season, development, regression, they're both different teams. Then you play Texas and you lose, and that was at the end of an SEC slate where you played 5 of the bottom 6 or 6 of the bottom.
It's irrelevant. It's irrelevant.
I'm just saying, like, is this potentially like A&M's one of the like 3rd hardest game of the season that they're going to have played?
4th. I'd say 4th.
4th? Were you putting them
And that's
behind
probably
LSU?
unfair. Just having to go to LSU and they still kind of their season was still alive. I'd put it right there. And Miami's a better team, but
Yeah.
just like having to go win in Death Valley is crazy. And we get Miami at home. We had to go to Notre Dame. We had to go to Texas. Um, it's one of our toughest challenges for sure. And there's definitely a world where I see we lose this and everyone starts calling us frauds, and it's going to kind of be a little hard to fight up against that.
Yeah.
But I think the fact we get it at home is huge. Going back and watching that Texas game, the road environment really got to us. The O line really struggled to get off the ball at any sort of consistent like pace or like quickness. And that, I mean, if your O line isn't getting into a set position, or getting off the ball quick at all, the Texas D line is just going to shred you apart. And then from there, Marcel panics. So having it home is massive, in my opinion. It's being talked a lot because of what it's going to do to Miami, because of how big the crowd is and how loud the crowd is at Kyle Field. But I don't think it's being talked about enough about what it's going to do for A&M and their offense, and the fact that when we have the ball, it's going to be nice and quiet, and Marcel Reed can do his thing, and the O line can hear, and stuff like that. I can get into my thoughts now.
Yeah, now that we've done 10 minutes,
if
you go ahead and start your
Sure.
your spiel.
It's a trenches game. I think this is the biggest trenches game of the first round in terms of the Miami defensive line is fantastic. And so something I'm looking at immediately if I'm an A&M fan is, are they going to be able to get pressure bringing 4? And if they do that, all my confidence is gone, because then it means they're dropping 7 and I have to trust Marcel Reed to make reads based off of that and find his third read as they get open and work through progressions against them dropping 7 or maybe even dropping 8 some. So I'm looking at that immediately. Can they get pressure? Can Miami get pressure with 4? And if not, and they have to start blitzing, it gets a lot easier for Marcel Reed, assuming they don't just immediately get home on the blitzes, right? But it makes it a little easier for him to find his throws, find his lanes, find the soft spots in coverage, etc. Other big thing is, can we run the ball? Because it's kind of what predicates our offensive success, honestly. Le'Veon Moss is questionable for the game. If he doesn't go, I'm once again very scared. The kind of hodgepodge behind him of Jamarian Morrow, Ruben Owens, and then EJ Smith, they're all fine running backs. They just don't give us what Le'Veon Moss gives us, and that's yards after contact, tough running inside the tackles. My boy Ruben Owens is so fast, but he just falls over when he barely gets touched over and over again. And so once again, it's a great front seven for Miami. If we can't bring physicality in the run game and they stomp that, once again, I lose all confidence. And then on the opposite side, it's like Carson Beck doesn't handle pressure well. A&M likes to bring pressure. JP already mentioned on the show, we are tied for the lead in sacks in the nation. Can Cassius Howe, can the other guys on that defensive line get home? We love to blitz. Can the linebacker blitzes, the safety blitzes get home and kind of, get Carson Beck off of his spot? And then that's when you really see the turnovers come in from him, right? So those are kind of the big things I'm looking at. I think it's a trench war through and through. Just the dudes on this, both teams' offenses and defensive lines are insane. And then build off of that, they have Malachi Tony, we have Casey Concepcion and Mario Craver. Which team finds the explosives with their explosive wide receivers better? Does Tony have one reception for 30 yards, and then a couple, smaller things, and we do a good job tackling him in the screen game and whatnot? Or does he have a day where he has like 8 receptions for 120 yards and 2 touchdowns? What kind of day does Casey Concepcion have on the flip side? That's what I'm looking at personally as an A&M fan. What scares me the most? What I need to see from my team from the jump to feel confident.
Cool. Looks like we don't have a whole lot of thoughts in the chat about this game. Any other thoughts or takeaways, predictions before we get into picking the game?
Just play well, boys, please. I don't want to walk away from this game going, man, I really feel like we beat ourselves. Like, I don't want to walk away from this game and there be $50K in additions to the Cancun fund or the Cabo fund. Sorry, the coaches will be going to Cabo, the players will be going to Cancun, 1-2-3 Cancun, if we lose this game. But yeah, I don't want to see that. I don't want to see 10 penalties. I don't want to see 3 turnovers from Marcel Reed. I feel greedy asking for a 0 turnover game from Marcel Reed. I would love that. I want to see our running backs play with physicality. I want to see us not miss a bunch of tackles and play run fits terribly like we did against Texas again. I just want us to play well and let the chips fall where they may.
I think the this game can tell a lot towards next week because right now, as it stands, I don't think any of us would pick one of these two teams to beat Ohio State next week.
Sure.
Like, given how this game could potentially go, you may end up wanting to pick one of these two teams against Ohio State because if A&M blows the doors off Miami and they have an explosive offensive day and a dominant defensive day, you think that they can do the formula that Indiana did in the Big Ten championship game to beat Ohio State. I think Jack and I might pick Texas A&M. It looks like you wouldn't, Sanders. I don't think you'd feel the confidence there.
Yeah, I don't know.
think they'd have a chance.
I think
they have the opportunity to prove that they have the chance.
I agree. I think we're one of the higher ceiling teams in the tournament. We are also one of the lower floor teams.
Did you just
in
say
also have-
It's not a
Yeah, in
tournament, it's a
the tournament.
playoff.
It is a tournament.
Sorry.
You'd have
There's
a
a
pseudo home game as well, with it being in Arlington. And then
Yeah.
for Miami, there's already some buzz there that they could pull off this game. They have the players fully to compete with Ohio State as well. We did not mention him, but Ruben Bain, who's going to be a top 3 pick. Malachi Toney is an explosive threat that can have the big plays that Indiana had. Carson Beck, if he does enough against Texas A&M and their defense on the road, why wouldn't you think maybe that he could find some success against Ohio State's defense on a neutral site? I think it's kind of a toss-up there. So this game, for me, will tell a lot. If it goes one-sided and one of these teams looks really, really good, I think it's really easy to potentially pick them next week against Ohio State in a game that'll look a lot closer than it feels right now. So I think that's a huge thing to look at. And then then it becomes, if they can beat Ohio State, they can beat anybody. And maybe this is where the national champion comes from. I think you have more confidence that these two teams have the rosters and have shown the ceilings both offensively and defensively this year to be last year's Ohio State, more so than OU and Bama, because OU and Bama have one-sided problems on both on different sides of the football. I think it's a potential conversation that starts to emerge. The shaman starts to talk to you.
Starts whispering in my ear, like a little pillow talk almost.
Absolutely,
As I'm trying to go
depending
to
on
sleep
how
at
this
night while
game
I'm
goes.
drifting off. Yeah, I think that's fair. Shall we get into picking this game? You want to lead us off, Sanders?
Yeah, I will start us off. I'm gonna go. I know JP's already said he's going with Texas A&M. I will also be going with Texas A&M.
Oh no, the technical foul sweep.
Yeah, sorry, I'm putting it in the spreadsheet because we've had spreadsheet syncing issues. It's Texas A&M by 3. But I'll be going Texas A&M to cover in this game. As much as I talked about Marcel Reed and some of his turnovers and Texas A&M's lighter conference schedule relative to other SEC teams, playing a lot of the bottom teams and then losing to the one team you played in the top half. Y'all are a very talented team and a very good team, and also I just have very little trust in Carson Beck in the big games. And we talked about it earlier in his tendency to kind of crumble in the spotlight, losing big games at Georgia, now losing big games at Miami. He's lost, had a couple terrible games at Miami that it had them almost miss the playoffs. They end up sneaking in as the 10 seed.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go with Texas A&M to cover just because I have as many questions as I might have about Marcel Reed, and as real as the possibility is that he could throw a couple picks, I expect that from Carson Beck. Whereas Marcel Reed, it's just kind of a possibility that he could do that.
Yeah. JP, what do we got? We know who you're going, but you want to add anything on top of it?
I'll repare it down. I think it's not a confidence one like it was with OU. Like, I think Miami very well could win this game, but I'm going to have to see it to believe it. And so I'm going to take A&M. I'll take them to win. I'll take them to cover. I think you have if these quarterbacks don't get settled in, you might have less points in this game than you have in the OU Bama game. I think this could be 17-14, or it could be 17-10 or something like that. So I'll go A&M 17, Miami 10, and give me the Aggies. Gig 'em.
Gig 'em. I'm also going to pick my Aggies. Couple of parting words. Le'Veon Moss, please just be healthy enough to give us 8 carries at this point. Just give us something, anything, because you would be a huge boost. And then something I feel like I should have mentioned earlier when comparing the quarterbacks. Marshall Reed, this is a playoff game. You're wiggly, you're elusive, you can use your legs, and go use those legs to make big plays in the scrambling game and in the pocket to help us out. I think that's a huge advantage we have, something that they have to game plan for. And so there is no more stepping out of bounds on second down 2 yards before the first down marker. You can aura farm another injury for all I care if that's what it takes. But just balls to the wall, make plays with your legs, and I think we can get this done at home. Gig 'em.